an age thing.
So we've got Chris Foster, who's on the pros up at Hammery Manor, in for fitting today. So it's, a little bit different for everyone watching from the normal one. As you can see, Chris has one leg. Leads to different, not necessarily processes, but different kind of considerations when, slightly different considerations setting clubs up, particularly from a balance point of view. So, Chris, someone we've known a while, looking to upgrade irons. So just having a loosen up at the moment, and we'll take it forward from there. Ian just saying how Hammery's had a lot of work done on the course recently.
Yeah.
The European Tour course. Was it a couple of years back they had the European Tour event?
Yeah, it was when they did that UK swing. So it was 2020. It was when the COVID hit. They did the UK swing.
Yeah.
So they needed obviously a hotel on site
to
create a bubble. So it's obviously we had the English Open and things like that beforehand as well.
I think Clark won, Darren Clark.
Yes, and Westy.
Yeah.
So that was in the 90s.
Yeah. And how long have you been up there now?
How long have I been up there now? I'm trying to think now. Must be
that long.
Yeah, I must be coming up to 6 years now. Yeah, because I turned pro the year I joined. So I started my PGA. Yeah, year I joined, which was it's good actually. It's a nice course, nice place.
Yeah, it's just it's a Hertford way, isn't it? Yeah.
Yes, unfortunately, it's just a little bit short for the.
Well, you can see from the scoring with those guys. It was a very, very low score. That's ultimately a thing now. It could be a really, really good course for amateurs and a really perfect test for amateur golf. But those guys now, anything sub 7,000, even low 7,000s now is just.
We changed it. So 2020, we changed it to par 71 as well. So it was par 71, just over 7,000. But it's just too short. It was good. Like
I think it was quite firm and fast then as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. I mean, they had perfect conditions. There was no wind because we actually worked it. So we did the range. The greens were pure. We wanted to try and set it up a little bit different, make the greens a little bit firmer, but it was so hot. We were going through that sort of heat spell. Greens team didn't want to lose the greens.
Destroy the course for 1 week,
Yeah, exactly.
So generally looking at irons, they have had these ones since. We did a recap in 2020, but I think we did them before then.
Yeah, I think we did them 2019, and then we just changed the shafts, didn't we? I think last time.
Swing-wise, anything you're doing at the moment? Any changes? Any?
Nothing major. So I've been working with Simon Khan for the last kind of year. So just trying to get a bit more compression into it. Trying to use the hands a little bit less. Yeah. But yeah, nothing majorly changed. It's all been, if anything, been swinging it a little bit quicker than I used to. Yeah. Which is quite nice. I needed to.
Always a good thing. In terms of getting that sort of shaft lean, compression, a little bit more covered, is that to getting turned around a little bit more?
There's a couple of things. So we changed my gripper a little bit so that I can kind of hold the angle as I'm getting into impact a little bit more, so feeling like I'm a bit more into it. Turn-wise, I've always turned pretty well. I've never kind of struggled with that. If anything, sometimes I lead a little bit too much with the shoulder, so the club gets this way, a little bit too steep, and then I have to back out and flip it a little bit with the hands. Trying to get the club a bit more on plane, which, doesn't always work.
Swing. And so relative to what you're seeing for the performance from these, is there a particular aspect that you feel, let me grab your chair, that you feel you want to, say, develop with them, or anything in particular that you feel you'd like to change, whether it's flight or feel? Or
not a huge amount. Oh, wonderful. Not a huge amount. Kind of with the flight. I like the flight. I think that's why we actually changed the shafts.
Yeah.
So I was in the Project X before, and it was.
Yeah, I went to the Modus, the 105s, to get them out in front a little more. They were starting to get a little behind, having to play catch up.
Yeah, exactly. Especially when I wasn't swinging great. So yeah, in terms of flight, not a huge amount. Would like a little bit more distance if possible. Feel wise, I went to those Mizunos for a little bit.
Yeah.
I think that was kind of before I'd come back and done a recap. And they were the blades, absolutely loved them. They were probably the best irons that I've ever struck in terms of consistency as well. But obviously I just don't swing it quick enough for them. So trying to get something as close to that kind of feel as you can.
Keep that softer feel.
Yeah. But yeah, in terms of things, mostly it's just that little bit more distance, even if it's, you know, half a club. Makes a big difference for me because I don't.
Isn't it?
Yeah. I just don't hit it far enough these days.
And the distance size are getting, is it the progression of distance through the set? Do they bunch a little at the top end, or not? Is it more just generally anything we can, from a
I say, even if, you know,
general distance point of view, you squeeze a half a club, great.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, top end of the bag, you know, we've done driver in and the 3-wood in the last sort of couple of years. And they're now longer than, I say, that little gap between the 2-iron and my irons is quite significant now. So if it is possible to
bridge that up a bit.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Got it. No problem. And ball-wise, which ball are you playing?
I'm playing the X at the moment.
Get those
I was going to change over to the 1, but I don't like the feel of it.
That is always the kind of element to it. You've got to, technically one might be slightly better for spin, but you know, if the flight's just generally better on the other ball, well, or rather, sorry, if the feel's better, then you're going to look forward to using it more. You're going to touch around the greens.
Yeah.
All that side of things is equally as important. I will grab another sleeve of Pro V1Xs. Let's grab those very quickly now.
Oh, I'm just going to hit a couple more. If I can. That's the bad one.
Yeah, I guess it's a bit of a fill-in to anyone who's kind of tuning and watching this. It's, if obviously being single leg right leg, being single leg, the balance element is something that allows you to control the movement is really, really key, because you haven't got the 2 feet to kind of force one way or other off. So being able to turn and rotate and generate that speed without the club falling out of sync, the major, hence going to these shafts previously was a major thing.
I think that was the big thing, like when we first started kind of doing stuff, was, you know, you've always fitted me into something where I can feel that club head. Whereas, you know, numbers wise, I might not be into those bits, but it's about getting that feel and how that club's, you know, delivered. It makes a big difference, because again, you know, I do rely on the hands of, you know, more than quite a few people.
Yeah, and that's where then the consistency comes in. You know, it's giving you something. If the club can fall into the slot, if you can feel the bit you in particular feel the bit that you're striking it with, you know, that's then key to controlling it and getting that consistency. Like that one there, contact-wise, that's I'm assuming the 7-9 you got there.
Yeah.
You know, it's very, very solid. 136 efficiency there, square club face. You know, angle of attack's great. You know, nice and solid. So that certainly developed since we saw you last.
Yeah,
a little more downward, a little more shaft lean.
Yeah, I think you know, strike-wise has been pretty good. The one thing I've probably found, again, I don't know whether it's a fitting thing, I really struggle to get it to start right.
Yeah.
I'm getting it, you know, I feel like I've struck it well, I felt like I delivered the club well, but it tends to just start a little bit left and then just go a little bit left.
And that's probably down to because you're going around a single And if you're kind of trying to bounce this, you're going a single pivot point, you're going to clear open a little bit more, which is just going to drag the path a little bit more left, rather than I can drive off and forwards. So I can drive back on one leg, forwards on the other, and shift my centre moving that way, which brings the path more there.
It's always going to be coming that way.
For want of a better phrase, it's a spin around the single point rather than using 2 points to drive off. So you're very much centred. So that's never going to move ahead to allow you to move that way. It's more there. So it's always going to, the only way of doing it really is to set up a bit closed and play for a pull. To bring the path back online. Which, if you take, if you've aimed for it, that would be a perfect shot.
And to be fair,
it's whether that's you might be able to generate a bit more power doing that. It's whether it's as consistent from a directional point of view, potentially.
So that's what I felt like over the last kind of year is, I have created a bit more speed. It feels like I can get it out there a bit more. My tendency now is to aim too far right, and then I get a bit closed off, the club gets stuck. But that's what I'm kind of working on a little bit more as well. Over the winter, just make sure my alignments are good. And
Got it. Tweak that in. Don't let me know as and when you're good to go to move up to 6.
Yeah,
and
can do.
As and when you feel suitably limber, we'll get a bit
good.
of base data. Strike's nice. Strike sounds really, really solid.
Yeah, no, it's been, I say, in terms of kind of the golf and things, it's been some of my, some of the best golf I've played. It's just been a little bit frustrating. I think every kind of coach that tries to play a little bit, that works in a pro shop, will always say they just don't get enough time. So it's been a little bit like that, but the changes that we have made have been good.
As you say, you're getting the time to bed those in. Or
Yeah.
Is it, I think that's why I'm not fussed about external comments. I could just play my club stuff. Just because I just feel like I'd always get it half prepared.
It is a little bit like that. I did a couple of clutch events at the beginning of the year. Felt like I was playing really nicely, but you just can't prep properly. I was working until, on a late, we were working till 8 o'clock in the evening. And then I'm driving down to a clutch event that night to playing it the next day. And you're like, well, hang on a minute.
And playing against people who are playing full time.
Yeah, exactly.
It's,
that obviously have all their limbs.
Nice turn on that. Okay.
Yeah, it's a new shot shape.
And so, when it's warmer than this, sort of normal temperature conditions, what are you playing the 6 for at the moment?
6, it'll be, sort of carry wise, sort of 162, 163, around that kind of. I have been, where I've kind of been working on stuff, I've been gripping down a lot. Playing little grip down, sort of controlled shots. But, I need to kind of get out of that, really.
With the speed, are you consciously working on developing a little bit more speed, or is it the technique that's allowing you to put a little bit more in?
More the technique side. I'm going to start, especially this winter. I'm actually training for the marathon again over the winter, so that actually
is there more common wise that the man's a fool?
I don't really know why I agreed to do it, but it's going to be good fun. So everyone keeps telling me.
Is that going to be back in April next year?
Yes. Yeah. So I was supposed to do it the year 2020. Obviously, it got cancelled, and so I trained for that one. Then I trained for the one that was going to then be in October. That obviously got cancelled. And then I had to defer last October's one for this year. So
you've been in training for 3 years?
Pretty much, yeah. I've trained for 3 marathons and haven't run one yet.
Sounds square hit.
Yeah, it was better.
Okay. Yeah, so what's interesting with that one is the other previous couple of shots have just been a little bit open on the face, and so spin up a little. That one you've squared off, and then that's back into that little bit of a stronger flight.
Yeah.
but then also a bit more ball
Numbers change.
speed efficiency. Yeah, so if you go back a couple, I think pretty sure strike wise, pretty I mean, if that hadn't been centred, I mean, fractional there, but it's more face it, it'll open, just puff the flight up a little bit, which has lost you half a club or so. I mean, overall, very, very solid. It's small. It's you'd hope, having done the clubs previously, it'd be fine tuned. But it's really, I think now whether the current club heads I would expect to be able to give, the I200s that you've got are very consistent, and that's where you see Fitzpatrick's been carried on using those.
Yeah.
I think he's still in.
Yeah, I think he still is.
Really consistent, stable club head. It's from the tech point of view, he should be able to squeeze another little bit of ball speed out of them, and certainly a little bit more stability. It's whether that kind of separating the weight a little more heel toe feels a bit more hollow, but whether there's enough of a gain to make that worth the
kind of the transition into it.
But so I mean, say that really nice strong. So you could see you got through and covered that and got around that really well and squared it off. So would that tend to be the shot shape you'd see? Is that little bit of just a kind of tail left at the end?
Yeah, it's literally that. I mean, I've been playing with the draw pretty much all year round. Obviously, again, where I get a bit lazy and start aiming a bit further right, that then starts becoming a bigger draw. But if I'm playing with anything, it's going to be that little soft one.
Okay, lovely.
Which is always nice.
Great, right. Well, we'll get a base head. I mean, are there any heads in particular that you're interested in or like the idea of in terms of concept? Or?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we've always come in just open-minded. I'll pretty much try anything. I've always been ping. Since even when we fitted, it always just happened to come out. I don't think, apart from that set of Mizunos at one point that I had, that's the only time I've ever gone away from them. But yeah, very open to pretty much anything.
Great. I'll get. What I'll do is I'll get next generation of. We'll start with the 230 just as a head, just to double check cross-reference shaft side of things. See if there's any gain we can have there. Once we double check have got that lined up, we'll look at the head and then see what sort of gain on ball speed.
Yeah, sounds good.
Without knuckling spin.
Yeah, perfect.
Yes, I'm going to start. I'll pull out the one that Chris is currently using as well, just as a sort of marker. But going to just see with a slightly lighter shaft, see if we take that down, if there's any benefit there. We'll be able to keep the feel of the head with a lighter shaft, but whether that throws the timing off at all. It's going to be fine tunes versus current shaft, simply because your movement pattern hasn't changed massively.
No.
And physiologically, it's not. It's really, if that develops, then that's where we tend to see the most change in those. But we want to make sure we've dotted I's and crossed T's for spec point of view. So I'll just make sure this is exactly the same balance as very similar. We're changing the shaft first, so it'll be a similar balance to your current one. I'll make sure loft matches up completely as well. As you say, flight's in a good place. It's a nice sort of
I'd say
neutral trajectory.
I like when it comes out. I like the look of it, and I can still play around with it. I can still lower it if I want to. Whereas I felt like when I came, I think when we moved into the C tapers from the Project X, it was just flying a little bit too high at the time. And I couldn't play in wind.
Okay, I'll just get that matching on the loft. So planning on playing pretty regularly next year?
Yeah, obviously kind of with the move as well. I'm kind kind of weighing up options. Might try and play a little bit more next year. I haven't played any sort of disability golf for a good 10 years or so now, so I'm looking at potentially playing a bit more of that. I don't know whether you've seen, they've created this G4D tour, which is kind of the leading disability golfers in the world are playing alongside the main pros at certain events. So I think they're doing eight tournaments a year. There's one at the moment, so they've got the Australian All Abilities Championship at the moment. But I've got to play disability golf to qualify for it. So yeah, might do a little bit of that. But yeah, well, I enjoy competing, always have done. That's part of my problem. Right.
So going to be noticeably a bit light. I've taken about 7 or 8 grams out, so there's no point going too subtle to start with.
Ooh.
Yeah, you can certainly see from that way. I'll put a little bit more on the head, where you're used to having a little bit more to drive against. So I'll just bring the head out a little bit more on that. Let's re-tag that. Clicked on something I didn't intend to do. Right, there we go. Okay. Let's re-tag that. Yeah, so club speed was up by a couple of miles an hour, but slightly misdirected, so we'll get a little bit more head weight to see if that can help to drop that in a bit more. I mean, I'd be surprised if it was this much of a change. Yeah. But if we don't try it, we don't know.
Always got to try something.
So it's really that kind of is from a head weight, you're controlling the timing of when the club head comes through in sync at the bottom. So you know, the base synchronization is going to be more about the total weight, i.e. shaft weight. And so I can see with this one, having put a bit more head weight on, Chris can control the face a little bit better, but it's still on the way down. It's still kind of getting ahead of you a little bit.
Yeah.
You're just overpowering it a bit. So, so we know that one's too light. Where with the first swing, we were just a little bit light total weight and head weight, so it allowed Chris to just go that way and just get the face shutting down. So I was likening it to a cricket bat being too light. You're through the shot before the ball's there, so you know you're through impact before you get to impact. Yeah. And you can mitigate it a bit with head weight, but it doesn't stop. You'd then have to just back off it and quiet the swing down.
Yeah, you're trying to almost
to compensate for the lack of weight. So, so I'm just going to go back up a few grams there. But it was a pretty decent change. You know, say if it had been a eureka moment, I'd have been quite surprised. Yeah. But, just re-pull up that spec sheet. Right, so let's back up just over the 100 mark. It's about 5 grams lighter than the modus that you currently in.
Feels better.
Yeah. It's interesting though. So what is interesting, you still deworming, you still see a little bit of just being able to overwork that round. It's the kind of thing that almost for you is a little bit more, you're going to be that bit more sensitive to it because of having that kind of one sort of grounding point rather than being able to almost sort of find a balance left to right side. It's as you fire, it either stays in the slot or it doesn't. Yeah. It's more likely to fall a little out of plane if the balance goes off. Yeah, it's just you're having to put it into place. So
Yeah.
it's not doesn't find its own plane.
Yeah, it almost feels like I've got to
Yeah. So you
manipulate it.
find that point to let it drop in. Yeah. Hence left and right.
Left hand, right, yes. Yeah.
Just turn that over. Just seat slightly better. It's interesting, there's a very slight, kind of got a little click going on if you can swing through it.
Okay, that'd be fine.
Still very slightly. Just fine tune that balance, make sure you don't start with it too heavy. I much prefer build the weight up and firefight it. There we go.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is same shaft as you currently game, and immediately you can just see as you start down, the club literally just drops in line. You can just keep getting, okay, well, I'll push it slightly heavier.
Yep.
Just because we know where we are with that one.
Yeah, it just feels, it's similar when we did the driver. You know, when we were in the Tour AD, and just couldn't find anything that was better than it, because it just feels, as soon as I get that feel in there, it's...
Yeah, and I'd say it helps you just find the repeating slots of the swing as well. It's a real kind of case where player and club sync up really nicely. So let's push it a few grams. So we've got a particular sort of program over the winter?
So I had, so I saw Simon last week, just for a bit of a check-up, just to have a look, because just everything had started to just go off the ball a little bit. I wasn't hitting the ball great. I was getting a lot of toe strikes.
Okay.
So we kind of sorted that out, and then I've been doing a little bit of work with Scott Cranfield as well. More from the from the head sides. So again, I played some really nice golf, kind of out tournament. I played some good golf in tournament as well, but it just wasn't as consistent as what I thought it could be.
Has that been as much of strategy based?
Yeah, so we've done a lot of stuff actually. We've done a lot of kind of bits and pieces prepping for tournaments. So how I go kind of about practice rounds and things like that, which was good. And now we're going starting more into a bit of performance and kind of what my mind thinks while I'm playing, which is an interesting one.
It's a difficult one, I think, that balance in tournament play of, we all want to be as almost an autopilot as possible, but it's finding that balance between, there's a famous, I remember all the Masters videos, and Faldo his first win, saying he was on the practice ground with Jack Nicklaus before the first round, saying, I'm trying to work out whether to try to make it happen or to let it happen. Hoping Nicklaus would give him an answer, and Jack just turned to him and went, I know what you mean.
Yeah.
He was like, no, what's the answer? And he said if tried to force it the first 9, had a bad first 9, and said, sort of, let's just let it happen.
Yeah.
And then went and won.
Yes.
And it's that trying to stay focused on on the game without overdoing it. It's so hard.
It's strange. I mean, obviously before I started playing golf, I was a swimmer, and that was exactly the same. I was always quicker in training than I was in tournaments and competition. So it's obviously something that goes on when I get into competitions. But we're working through it.
So the only time I've ever been sort of what you call in the zone is when I'm playing in a comp, but something's happened. It was one where I had the only ever hole in one I've ever had on the second hole.
Yeah.
And at that point, I was still trying because it was a pairs comp, and I had a 63.
Yeah.
Because I stopped worrying about there was no consequence. I didn't really. I cared, but I didn't really.
No, you're not really
worry about it going wrong or the what if this shot doesn't happen. I'd say loss of consequence to the game.
Yeah,
and it just freed you up to just play.
It's very fun. I mean, that's pretty much like sort of the conversation went along those lines when we spoke the other day. It's almost like, what happens if you do miss this shot? And trying to kind of visualise, well, it doesn't really matter if you miss the green, you miss the green. You just rely on the short game to make up and down, which is kind of what I've been doing for years. So
it's easy in theory, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that's part of why the best players are the best players, because they're able to almost sort of compartmentalise and separate off that don't screw it up kind of mentality.
Yeah.
And just go, right, that's the shot I'm trying to hit. There's the target, play it, and then worry about it afterwards rather than getting halfway down the swing and don't miss it left.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's a little bit down to prep as well. But I mean, Tiger, there's a reason why people always say that he's one of the best minds in golf, is because he was very, very good at doing that. The big moments he could, almost draw on something a little bit different, whereas everybody else kind of seems to seize up a little bit.
Okay, so this one's a little more tip heavy. You can see again just having to work it
a bit more.
I mean, there's the one when he won at Valhalla. The putt that got him into the playoff. I remember him saying he stood over this putt going, "My mum could make this putt."
Yeah.
And almost the little mental games that he'd play with himself.
Yeah, definitely. You look at when it was 2010 that he got into the playoff with Rocco. That wasn't an easy putt. No. From a guy that should be able to get on that green in 2 pretty easily, sticks it in the bunker, then has to wedge out and wedges out into the rough, so he can't even control the spin.
And then he got backspin on that shot as well.
Yeah, exactly. Something okay then. But that's
and
kind
then
of.
You got the close up of the ball going towards the hole, seeing it hopping and bumping and bumping.
Yeah,
it just took the right edge.
I definitely, it's. I think that side is going to be quite beneficial to me. So Scott's been good. We had a little bit of a chat, kind of early 21, doing some bits and pieces, but I've kind of really pushing it for next year, because I'm just getting a bit fed up with playing rubbish in tournaments.
Okay. So I'm just going to push. We know taking that balance a little more extreme just means you've got to fetch the club head end.
Yeah.
Just going to push the weight up a couple of grams over the modus just to see where that gets us to. I mean, clearly modus still swings really well.
Yeah.
So, as we kind of said at the beginning, it's going to be, if it's anything, it's going to be a fine tune.
Yeah.
So, I might just, James, would you just mind, that just needs a slight trim on the tip angle. So some of the ping hossel's a little bit shallower, so we're just going to nip the tip off it. Yeah, I think we go back to the mental side. That's why Nicholas and Nicholas Woods, players at the best Sevi would out kind of not necessarily think people, but his aura would get in people as well. You saw the name Montgomery at the top of the leaderboard. He obviously we've known Colin very, very well over the years, and he said he would. His mentality was, well, these guys aren't in it if I'm playing well. they can't beat
No.
me.
And that's the, you know,
He knew if he played his way that he was going to be up there.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. And having that knowledge that that's where you're going to be.
Yeah.
Confidence, that's where
that was, you know, the Tiger effect.
Yeah.
People saw him surging up the leaderboard. Instead of thinking, oh, you know, I've got to just keep playing golf, they go, I've got to up my game now because he's going to hunt me down. And it's, you know, golf isn't about that. It's about worrying about your own play. And I think that's sometimes I've kind of, because there's no pattern with my tournaments, sometimes I'll get off to bad starts and I'll just go, okay, right, that's it. We'll relax now, and then I'll play well. But sometimes I'll get off to good starts, and then there's a patch in the middle that goes a little bit, and then I'll finish good. And there's just no rhyme or reason between it. But yeah, hopefully, so the stuff that we're working on should be fairly good anyway.
But I think it's probably, my guys are classic as getting in my own way, playing, and we'd get a good start, and then I'd often not want to start too well. I play my best golf through a very steady first few holes and kind of build through the round.
Yes.
Whereas if I started hot, I would classically just try not to screw it up.
Yeah, you try and hang on to the score rather than...
don't mess up a score rather than guys. If they start, we'll just keep going.
Yeah, and you know, they're some of the best ones when they go really low. They start off well and they just keep going and going and going.
Yeah, they just don't see anything other than the flag.
No, exactly.
That G45 has been a very successful driver, isn't it?
Yeah, very, very popular. Yeah. No, I think we generally are.
Good
Quite like the feel of it though.
Contact. It's not a dissimilar balance to the lip on. It's just a few grams heavier.
Yeah.
So it'd be interesting to see something I could see there, but interesting to see whether that happens again on the next swing.
Yeah.
So once you get enough weight, you can use it to drive against.
Yeah.
It's whether it just
holds back
you
too
off.
much. Yeah. I I felt like I had a bit more time on that. It was almost sort of, maybe I wasn't expecting it. Bit toey. Felt a bit toey.
Yeah, I think watching you swing that, you could kind of see it as you started. It kind of got you there.
Yeah.
And then you've got to also drag the handle around to get it
square, yeah. Rather than just kind of
a little more out in front
yeah.
of you. So I'm just going to stick that one back in. So we can just see quality of contact. Club speed's still good. Smash factor, quality of strike just tailed off a little bit. Spins popped up a little bit. So just that stability of club head at impact has dropped off a little bit. Actually, I needed to turn that one around. It's better the other way. So is there not a quota, but a sort of amount of tournaments you've got to play on the disabled circuit to get in?
No, not really. So basically, it's all run by Edgar, and there's tournaments literally all over the world. You just get world ranking points as you play. So depending on your finishes, you could win one and come second in one, and all of a sudden you're right up there.
Yeah.
And again, I think it's they've got like two types as well. So there's like a Premier, and then an Access, I think it's called.
Click.
Is that a Click? Yeah, it's fine. And I think that gives a little bit of difference in world ranking points. So yeah, it's still fairly new to me because when I was playing disabled golf when I was an amateur, it was you find an event, you enter, you go and play it, and you didn't really get anything apart from where you finished in that tournament.
Yeah.
Now it is starting to kind of build up a little bit. So yeah, I think it's about time I started doing some bits.
What sort of field size in each tournament?
So the G4D is only 10 players, I think. But then your normal Edgar events, you can get anywhere from 50 to 120.
Yeah.
But they're all different disabilities. So you could be playing I could be playing somebody, who's got CP. I could be playing with somebody that's lost an arm. It could literally be anyone. So it is good. Oh, come on, Chris. That's poor.
See whether that's just a reaction to having had to work the heavier ones a little bit more. What is noticeable with that one? Okay, it's a little bit anti-left there, but the difference with that shaft, as you can see, you can get it out there and deliver it rather than it dropping in behind.
Dropping and almost getting stuck. So I then have to.
I think as a head, that's solid, but it's just popping it a little bit. So I just want to get something that's going to give you a little bit more punch. I'll get this one off. I'll get 2 or 3 heads and I'll give you a couple of minutes to chill out. But yeah, certainly still the right shaft for sure.
Yeah.
That you can see how much more in control. And that's just so. I think the one left was one of just having swung something heavier, you're having to fetch it and then just overworked it, and then just a little bit of an overcorrection the other way. But we can see ball speed's back up a little bit again. Your efficiency's back up a little bit.
Yeah, strike certainly seemed a little bit better with that one.
But I'll get a couple of heads that are going to keep the flight. The I-230 is great for picking flight up.
Yeah.
Actually, if you want we don't need the extra little bit of launch, so we'll get a couple of heads that'll help with that. So first one just going T100S, just again generally helps keep that flight a little bit stronger. Keeps a nice sort of clean profile to it as well. We're really actually looking to keep launch and spin in a pretty neutral window. And so the 230 has definitely been designed to keep a little bit more flight on it. So, so using something that's, I don't want a bullet of a flight, but that allows a bit more forward momentum. Just match the loft. This one's swing weighting about a half a point heavier.
Okay.
So very slightly stronger head weight on this particular one.
Yeah. Do like the look of it.
Yeah, very, very clean look. So this one's got the extra tungsten in the sole. They have got a little bit of a channel in the back.
Yeah.
So it's got a slightly, I guess, traditionally than other Titleist heads, it's got that little bit of a harder note to it.
Yeah.
But has been very efficient on ball speed.
Okay.
Almost relative to what Titleist normally do in terms of fine tunes, it's noticeably that bit stronger than the standard T100.
Okay.
It's a very, very clean visual. Yeah.
I think it was just bat swing.
Yeah, well, obviously, sometimes in terms of where that weight sits, it's sometimes you just get a non-compute in terms of how the construction impact position. Right? That's probably stands a little bit toey. Yeah, toey.
Toey. Yeah.
So, but it's quite a different sound. Of this
Yeah, certainly compared to the i200s. I mean, as well.
Yeah, ball speed's down. Let's make a little switch on that. Just you can just hear that. It's just where that mass is just not getting into the back of the ball for you. So yeah, that's what we're seeing more and more the last couple of seasons, is that as constructions get a little bit more complicated, using more materials, sort of particularly in driver heads, that certain head styles and weight positions just do not suit certain people.
Yeah, I say it's been a strange one. Obviously, I've been in those for a number of years now, and you do get used to that quite a lot. But even when we were doing the driver fit, going into the sim to try and get that spin down, but then a lot of people I know don't like the sound of it, whereas I love the sound off of it, and the way that it looks.
Put that bit back on. I'll just make sure the loft matches up.
Yeah.
You ready? Matching loft up. So this will certainly be back at that slightly softer feel.
Yep.
So this is the MP2T3.
Okay.
Got the copper layer under the nickel plate just to dampen, to softens that sound, and something they did in previous models years back.
Yeah.
So where the T100S has got a little harder note because of that tungsten in there, this one
This will be that little bit softer.
Down,
yeah.
And it's just straight away ball speeds there in terms of back up where we're looking for it to be. Interesting where the spin is. Okay, spin's a little higher, but ball speed efficiency immediately back up. So, okay.
That was, I like that. I like the sound of it as well.
Yeah, it's a head when he's in there finally got, one of he's finally got a bit of tech in a proper player's head.
Yeah.
8/9 pitch, one piece, forged, very traditional, and then progressively a little bit more face performance as you move up the set. Little faded where the spin's just a little bit.
Yeah.
Which is what's putting the spin up a little bit.
Okay.
But ball speed efficiency very good on those. Okay, I'll come back to that rather than wasting swings. Okay, we know
I like
that's
that.
worth working with.
Definitely like that.
It's one where there's been a bit of a gap in their head models for a number of years where there just hasn't quite been, the head next one back from the blade has not been different enough.
Yeah.
And then there's been a reasonable jump to say like the HMB head.
Yes.
Whereas that has really kind of bridged that gap a lot, and it's been very successful head this year because also it's that softer feel.
Yeah, well, I'd say that's as close to kind of the feel of when I had the blades than even with the I200s.
So, only question mark, this is a very slightly heavier head.
Okay.
And it's whether, I think if it works really well, then there's a case of, right, we find a way of working with it. It's on the top end balance-wise of what's doable from the build standpoint.
Yeah.
So if it comes off the face, great. Then if it's a little bit off, then but it's on that top end.
Okay. Looks good.
Yeah, been it's a great classic look.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, the performance of it has been pretty strong, but so for you, the balance is so key that we can't afford to do is have it compromise your
the
timing.
kind of movements.
Not too bad. Not too bad. I'll watch one more, but I think it's just that one was just down a little bit on efficiency.
Okay.
Squared it really well, obviously.
Yeah,
but,
so it felt like quite nice from the top.
And that's a fair weight club. You wouldn't take this out of rough, you take it.
yeah, the moment that weight tips up, you've got to then
Got
wait
to force
for
it
it
at the top, yeah.
Right. Let's get those out of the way. Just make sure I'm not missing any heads. We'll do a little bit of work with that Mizuno as well, for sure. Fine tune that weighting. Same thing, I'll just turn that shaft around. Get it seating. There's such tiny tolerances on the sleeves. I think this might be like that pink header, just a very, I mean even less than that one, a little bit of a. Feel should be good on this head. Very nearly there.
These PSGs, are they worth the effort?
We'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
Conversation in the Davey.
Perfect timing.
It's generally a slightly lower spin head.
Okay.
So we'll see, it's very similar in terms of performance in theory to that Mizuno
Yeah.
head. What's quite interesting is the heads where they've thrown a load of tungsten to the outside.
Yeah.
Every single one of them will do one more check, but every single one of them, the ball speed's been less.
Been less. Okay.
Which
is strange because
theory,
I get a lot of toe strikes.
But there is a consistency to it. So
Yeah.
Yeah, still a little bit down on ball speed.
Yeah. That felt like a better swing.
A
A bit more of a.
Do a bit of work with that Mizuno. So how much, just more for people to tuning, is it how much sort of management of that, your kind of hips and pelvis have you got to do to stay
To be fair,
injury-free, functional, that kind of stuff?
not a huge amount, if I'm honest.
Because you've got a lot of core strength that's built
Yeah,
around.
exactly. I mean, so I lost the leg when I was 9, so 24 years now that I've been like it, my body's adapted. So, for example, my knee's hypermobile, so I can, take the strain, especially when I'm swinging the golf club. So there's quite a lot of force that goes through knee, ankle, foot.
You can say the ankle side of things as well.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, touch wood, I've been injury free for a while.
Yeah.
And then core side, he's obviously been pretty good, not just from general kind of standing and hopping about, from a swimming days and things like that.
Yeah.
So no, it's. So I haven't been injured. I've had a few niggles here and there.
Yeah.
The worst one was when I was swimming. So shoulder went just before Beijing, and that was end of swimming. And ever since then, I've never really had any major problems. So the running side's been good as well. Trying to kind of maintain that amount of training again. So again, when you're doing long runs, the amount of force that's going through hip, knee, foot needs to be managed a little bit. But that's why I've gone. So I've got new crutches last year.
Is that kind of to shock absorbing?
Exactly that. So I've got
the
bottoms.
Technological advancements in that side of things.
In crutches, yes. I think, unfortunately, like in prosthetics, from my side, there's not a huge amount because I'm a through hip amputee, so it kind of wraps around me. There's not a massive look into that nowadays. It's more below knee amputees, just above knee amputees. The technology in the knee themselves is incredible. But in terms of mine, because there's so much there. You've got hip joint, knee joint. You've got the foot. There's not a lot you can kind of do. The blades, for example, in a through hip amputee are a lot harder to use because there's so much energy that gets put through them. You can't then control it because you have to control it yourself. So it's
as long as you've got some kind of hip joint and leg to work
exactly
that with.
Then you can go with it because you can control that kind of that force coming through. But I mean, I haven't worn a prosthetic for probably 10 years. I get around on the crutches quicker. It's just a lot easier.
And kind of wear and tear on shoulders and elbows and things, wrists.
Touch wood.
I guess I think many things, isn't it? Is you like anyone who doesn't sport, you're either fortunate and your body doesn't injure easily, or you're unlucky and you do get injured.
Exactly. Again, I know a lot of people that I've done sport with over the years that have been injury prone all the way through. Again, I haven't really had any problems with wrists, shoulder. Obviously, since swimming, I haven't really had any problems. I can walk on and run on these for days, and they don't. That side never hurts. It's more lower back and knee and things like that will get a little bit stiff. But other than arms wise, you just kind of get used to it after a while.
I think that's the thing. Is it's amazing how adaptive the human body is, and that it'll orient itself around a position and stabilise, and the muscles develop, and
Definitely. I mean, that was the one thing that I've always said is I was very, very fortunate at losing the leg at a young age because now my body's developed to a stage where, it's second nature to me. I've had one leg, double the amount of time that I had two. So it's, whereas you lose it a little bit later, it is tougher. But that's kind of why I want to play golf and get out there to, prove that there are things that you can still do. Not the best swing, but I really like the feel of it.
Not a little more out to and a little bit more open face. So that's where, like the few shots so far that we've seen, that from a spin point, we slightly toe side on that one. But I think that's potentially a function of just the open face. The head, there are certainly lower spin heads than this. It's whether we'll do a couple with this, work on this a little bit. There is one other head that I'll get. I think it's still a little bit just on the toe side. A little bit. There's a squarer swing through, just still a little bit on the toe side. I'll just push the weighting up a fraction. Right, thank you. Yeah, sure. Leave that on. I'll use a fresh bit. It's a bit fatigued.
I know the feeling.
Carried that 177 yards and it went 211.
There we go.
Wonderful, thank you.
Okay, better ball speed there.
Yeah, it felt better as well. Felt like I
Yeah, squared up a bit better, and there's the fly tilt. Now there's actually still a little bit more to get out. We've had slightly more efficiency off previous shots, but that one squared up. We're into the
and that's into that
stronger
kind of
flight again. So yeah, contact wise, still a little toey.
Still a little toey
on the toe side.
Okay.
But a better squaring of the face through the ball.
Yeah.
Dead square face to pal. That sounded.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So in terms of that one there, which is purely just getting strike point onto the crosshair.
Yeah.
That's pretty centred. Whereas the previous one was just a little out on the toe. I don't know whether James has got the screen on. So you can just see the shadow mark changing the previous shot to that one there. And ball speed, for a mile an hour less club speed, there's 4 miles an hour ball speed. So that's just, some of that's probably just dialing in the kind of sweet spot variation head to head.
Yeah.
And then that's that kind of efficiency. I'm going to go to the strongest shot with your current one. I just want to compare so proportionate ball speed. I mean, that was a really, again, the last shot you hit with your I-200s.
Yeah.
Very middled, good, simple, slightly higher launch, slightly lower spin, but 141 efficiency.
Yeah.
And 143. So there is a little bit more ball speed to come from that. I think, interesting enough, by the looks of it, it's a marginally higher spin head.
Yeah.
Now that one launched a bit lower than some of the others. The others were kind of more 15.5, 16. I mean, and this is where you look and go, well, do you? Probably don't like the feel of it, but from a flight point of view, you could slightly optimise it with Pro V1 versus Pro V1X. But there is a little bit more ball speed.
Yeah.
So you can and that's going to build slightly more into kind of top end 5-iron, 4-iron and things as well.
Yeah.
To just progress the ball speed, make sure you've got a kind of 5 mile an hour, at least progression on ball speed each club. But certainly, I mean, it's fine tuned. I mean, actually, because setup wise, they're performing very, very well.
Yeah.
So we're reliant on, you've got a little bit of a marriage face on the I-200. It's relying on a progression in that tech pretty much more than anything else.
Yeah.
Adam, so I'm going to get the 525. I just want to see with a head that's designed to give it a bit more, whether that throws off some of the numbers, or whether it does help just progress it on. And we could always bring the loft up a little bit if it knocks the spin down too much. Great. But so with that one, just a slightly, this is where the marginally different constructions of heads can mean a slightly different swing weight to time the same.
Yeah.
So, this one's about 0.3 of a swing weight point more than your current ones.
Okay.
But that's what then you could see the timing of the strike and squaring the face
a bit more.
happen with that there's a bit more momentum of the head to take you through the ball. So you're not having to find.
But then still not a
quite
bigger change that I'm then fighting against it to try and.
Well, I think a bit of it is. I mean, you see it with drivers when they, we were looking at, previously you could match swing weight between different heads and they would swing the same. Whereas, over the last 4 or 5 years, as the heads have got, lighter faces, lighter crowns, move more weight to the back, you're naturally shifting the centre of gravity more from the toe of the shaft. So actually the swing weight had to change to feel the same as the swing because it creates a different momentum. Yeah. And we're seeing that a little bit with irons.
Yeah.
Certainly, I mean, it's going to be less exaggerated because you've got a much smaller head.
Yeah.
But if you've got, for example, 20 grams of tungsten in the toe in the same mass of head, it will just shift that kind of. The static balance will have to change a little bit to get them to
get the same,
move the same momentum and everything. Yeah. this will go back to feeling a little harder.
Okay.
But it's kind of testing out the theory of, right, if we go to a head that's going to push that, designed to push that ball speed a little bit further,
Yeah.
you know, does that augment performance enough
To worry about feel and things
yeah.
like that. Yeah. I think most people, if they hit the ball 20 yards further, they're probably going to go, you know what, I'm not that worried about the feel of it.
It's as you say, it's amazing how something that works well can become enjoyable.
Yeah.
Yeah. Within reason. There are, you know, it's an important part. It's, you know, it is feel. You know, sound is feedback. And you know, is then the consideration is then around the greens a short game of whether that's something that feels controllable.
Yeah. Ooh.
Is a very different sound. Yeah. So I mean, straight away, because the head's naturally a lower spin head,
Yeah.
for a couple of miles an hour less ball speed, you're pretty much at the same distance.
Yeah.
But we all heard the reaction to it, and so it is important. You've got to look forward to using them.
Yeah.
There's one thing knowing they work well, but it's another thing going, okay, for the sake of 2 or 3 yards, okay, technically that could probably get you a half a club more.
Yeah.
Even over the Mizuno, certainly a good half a club over your current.
Your currents. Yeah.
It gets to that point where are you going to
Enjoy it.
Are you going to enjoy using them? Is it going to be too much of a change over something that you're familiar with and like?
Sounded a bit better, but
Yeah, so definitely spins down a little bit. Mm-hmm. It's not immediately jumped the ball speed up.
okay. Was that?
The spin's in technically a slightly better window, but
But
there are ways of, you know, if we need to, like, it'll be interesting with the other head to do a test with the Pro V1 and just sort of see
what is.
if that brings it down into more of this kind of window,
Yeah.
then that from a grinded with irons optimizing ball flight.
Yeah.
You could then argue to say, well, okay, when it's firm in the summer and you need that bit more spin control,
Yeah.
then the X will give you that.
Yeah.
But if it's in vertical standard conditions, then the
one.
trajectory is just slightly more optimal with.
Yeah. With the one.
And ultimately, if you start playing the one, then you could probably find, well, you'll just get comfortable using it. And
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, it's a good ball flight. You know, that
Yeah.
efficiency-wise, say 114 ball speed, that's a 164 carry, whereas at 115 we were 163.
Yeah.
So it's very efficient.
Seems like it launches higher.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, a little higher. Yeah. Definitely launches a little
Just
higher.
where it goes higher and then.
But that little bit more weight in the bottom.
Yeah.
CG drops down, which gets you striking it above. It's like drivers, you strike it. People used to hit it higher on the face
Yeah.
to get it to gear the spin off. With this, the centre of gravity is low, which picks the launch angle up, but also gears the spin off because the centre of gravity is lower.
Yeah.
So the gearing on the spin. So hence, say very, very efficient.
Yeah. No, so you could even notice it quite a lot, even just off strike. It almost looked as though it just popped up.
Yeah.
It was funny because that first one, even though I didn't like the sound of it, the ball just went straight up. I thought, oh, that's not going to go anywhere. And then you look at it and it's like, oh, okay then.
Yeah, as you say, that one's up, similar kind of, if you look at the averages on that, 16.5 launch, 5.2 on spin versus 15.8 and 5.7.
Yeah.
Now, granted, there are a couple that just faded off a little bit more.
Yeah.
With that Mizuno, we'll go back to that as a comparison, but yeah, it's certainly, if I can find the right one, and that's where the material differences with the heads make that little bit different. It's whether that's a head you then want to use.
Yeah.
I think if it's the right word, compromise is then down. Out of something like the Mizunos, what you are not going to get is you're not going to get a needle to just go.
Yeah, so that's what I was about to ask. Are you going to get one? Are you standing over it and it just flies?
I mean, certainly there's going to be a little bit of that. I mean, there's a reason you don't see a lot of tour players using it, other than maybe a longer iron.
Okay.
Because you've got a little hotter face, and in the bottom end of the set, that's why a lot of them, Westwood, Fitzpatrick, Hovland, you know, the
Got those
210s
split
or the 200s. They say they're going to the 230s now, but actually that series is just a little more. It's not designed for quite the same heat off the face,
Yeah.
and that's where they use that to get a bit of the face tech, get a bit of progression, but not at the bottom end, not lose out on knowing how far it's going to go.
Yeah.
And so it's what that focus is. If we're purely focused on saying, right, what is going to give you the most efficient club ball flight, the maximum distance, without going to a bigger, clunkier head, then a 525 is a great head.
Yeah.
If we're also looking at going, okay, what's going to augment performance a bit, keep a sound and feel that you prefer, but in terms of if we're saying what we can't afford to give up is the control at the bottom half, then
this is
that gives you that a little bit more.
So I've learned a couple of things. Turn the grip.
heavy.
A little nut, yeah.
It was just lazy. I mean, straight away, feel-wise, even though it wasn't the greatest strikes, it was just, completely different. So,
I'd say it's essentially just different levels of similar tech. You know, slightly thinner face, more speed, a little extra weight in the sole.
There we go.
Yeah, I'd say that one's then, well, I guess that kind of renders everything we just said fairly. So that shows maybe it's a little bit of getting the face square slightly shallower and less steep onto that one.
Okay.
But that one's then got, it's still not quite as high a launch, but the spin's down in that same window.
Yeah.
You've then also, there's a bit of a reaction to liking what you're swinging because club speed's up a little bit.
Yeah.
And we've then got 142 efficiency, 117, 118 ball speed, 171 carry. So,
which is funny. That was when I think with the first time I came here, I used to swing it quicker than I do now, but I was very wild with it. I couldn't really keep it on the planet. So that was kind of a bit more reminiscent of feeling like I could have a little go at it rather than.
But you can see how it was very well connected.
Yeah.
It's the technique what you're doing. Just over rope. Was that a little more positive of the swing as well?
Yeah, got a little bit more.
Just give you slightly more on the head for that more positive swing. But interesting as you've put a bit more into it, the spins come down.
Okay.
So just change the dynamic, little bit less loft delivery at impact. Where that's just a little bit more, slightly stronger rotation, just leading to a little bit of a different leverage and line through. Very similar launch to where you were.
Yeah.
So that's not really change on previous one, 15.9, which where your average was. If I can click onto that. Yeah, exactly the same average launch, just with that previous one. The ball speed
just
was in a
jumped up
great
bit.
position,
Yeah.
but the spin got down in line with where the 525 was. So
Yeah. So it's do like the feel of it. It's
it's been a very successful head for them exactly for that reason. So you've got it's a classic Mizuno shape, sound and feel, but with a little bit of a tech injection into
as
it.
I said earlier, I mean, this is the closest thing feeling wise I've had since the blades. I would love to be able to keep on with the blades, but I don't swing quick enough.
Well, it's not a swing speed thing. I think it's one of those where the blades tend to be where the centre of gravity sits a little bit higher. If somebody gets on, I've always played blades, so to get on top and hits down on it, you're kind of getting the weight into the bottom of the ball a little bit more. I'll just check the line.
Of course.
It's probably where what these sort of heads will give you in the upper end. And short irons probably not a lot of difference, but in the upper end of the irons is just that little bit more than that very focused bit in the middle of the face to get the best out of.
Yeah.
It's just a little bit more club face to get that
actually
maximum from, rather than having to be quite so spot on.
Yeah.
Yeah, 115. That's nice tempo on that.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, so when it fades, that's when the spin goes up a little bit. So let's check that lie. So that one, pretty neutral, very slightly upright. I'll just flatten that down a fraction. So how visible it is. Sometimes you have to get the angle right, but see just the chalk line on the face there, just pointing a little bit towards the toe. It shows it's coming in just a little bit toe up. So I'm just going to flatten that down a fraction. Very consistent ball. Once you've got used to being slightly closer to it, once you've kind of zoned into the sweet spot, very consistent ball speed.
Yeah, certainly. So you can feel it off the face, if that makes sense as well.
Yeah.
It's again similar to the I200s, where I can kind of tell straight away whether I've hit a good one or not.
Yeah.
That's when I hit the 525. I think that's the bit that I'm going to struggle on.
And I wonder whether that's where some of the loss of ball speed on the heads that went a bit more hollow is actually what the head's doing is kind of covering up the mishits a little bit. So it's not kind of telling you that you've missed. So it's a great head for someone who
hits all over the place.
You don't want to realise where they've struck it a little bit, and because a lot of forgiveness is confidence. It's that bit of every mishit's going to come up slightly short, but it's whether you want the clubhead to tell you that you've mishit it or to try to kind of mask it. And there are just some players that respond better to knowing where the strike is and can zone that in.
Rather than
others, you want to kind of say mask it a bit so they don't realise and they just if it comes up a bit short, then they might go, oh, thought I hit it better than that, rather than oh my god, I haven't hit it well, must find the centre.
Whereas I think where I've got to again rely a little bit more on my hands, I do need that feedback a little bit just to.
Some players just find that kind of focus zones. You see it zone them in on the strike a little bit more, and I think you're certainly one of those. Strike. Yeah, it's squared it off a little bit more. Down to more of a mid spin. Yeah, and that's then so slightly toe side, but square up the face. So it was a hair. I'll bring that back to camera again there. See, that's then square up the face, whereas the other one was sort of on that sort of line. So just a slight tweak to lie just helps get the consistency of interaction of. It's as much interaction of the club and turf, probably more so in the shorter runs of it not gearing shots onto it.
It's funny because when I go into my shorter clubs, so pitching wedge, 9-iron, and even in my wedges, my tendency is, even though I strike them well, it goes left.
Okay, and you might find that actually, it's really got a hand position, but it may be that actually that progression of lie, rather than a constant progression of lie, actually needs to rather than getting more upright into the short irons to counter the shorter length, actually that flattens it off a little bit. I mean, lie's purely, I'm just going to see what a Pro V1 does. Lie is purely resultant on everything else. You wouldn't, if someone's got a very predominant shot shape, then yes, you'd use it to try to affect the consistency of direction, whereas for you, there's no point. We're all trying to square the
clip.
And we want you to see what the swing's done in the reaction with the ball. So I'll just see, switching to Pro V1, what that does to the spin.
Oh, I love that.
It's a little softer feel. Okay, a 5-1 on spin. So what it might allow us to do with this head is keep a hair more loft to keep the launch angle up. Because that's only like 0.2 of a degree difference on launch angle. So technically the Pro V1 is a little lower launching than Pro V1X, but it's also looks like it should drop about 300 revs of spin. So what it may well do is allow us to keep a hair more loft on there without the spin going up. So pick that launch angle up a little bit. I mean that's 168 carry. So land angle forward just about 43, 80 foot height. So from a control point of view, if we could eke that up another degree or so, then it just means coming into greens for you a little bit more control when it hits the deck. So especially Pro V does it because of the spin. If we can do it through height rather than extra spin, that'd be ideal.
Oh, Toey. Not going to get much out of that one.
Ball speed dropped, squared the face up. Yeah, ball speed dropped off, but fairly toe side.
Yeah.
We'll probably just do the one more. If
One
you're
more,
okay
yeah,
with
that's
the,
fine.
Pro V, just to see whether we get whether that's a consistent thing with spoon. Because I think there was that. Well, not I think there was that one shot in particular with the Pro VX where it dropped it down a little bit.
Yeah.
But if we could do it regularly with the Pro V1, then that's.
Yeah.
If it's a ball that you can get comfortable with.
Yeah, I mean,
then,
to be fair, it's I haven't used it enough.
Yeah.
Really, I put it in the bag for a couple of weeks and just didn't like the feel of it as much. And then it was kind of
sort
straight.
of short game wise.
Yeah, more short games, and where I do rely a lot on my short game.
And so that's where that sort of say weighing scales of what's more important. If it's a few hundred revs in a couple of yards, you could argue, okay, if it's naturally 300-400 revs lower, then you're not going to have to work the ball as much in wind. Those aspects act in the positive side, but then there's the other side of actually, is it more important to have that familiarity and control of the short game? Yeah, so
that's good.
115 ball speed again. So, interestingly, when you get that swing on it, that's the equivalent one that the 5-1 spin was with the X. So, what I would then say is I think that stay with the X, because the ones that go off right and spin up are the swings we're not really trying to hit.
Yeah.
So, when you get the swing where you want to, that starts to then bring a little bit too much spin off.
Yeah.
So, ultimately, what we're looking at, I think, is fitting for. I'll find it there.
That swing.
That swing.
Yeah.
Then the X retains the spin.
Yeah.
The ones that go a little bit right. Where was it? Let's just find the proportionate one. That's still fine. Just find the right shot to look at. Something like that one.
Yeah.
Just launch angles up a little bit. The spin's kicked up a little bit.
Yeah.
So, and the path's a bit more out to in. So it's more like that when you've got through the back of the ball.
Yeah.
That then gives you that extra punch on swing on flight, a little bit more flight strength at the top of the flight. So I think with that, seeing those two, I don't want the spin to get as low as it does.
As low it does with the one.
With the Pro V, sorry. Mine's going back 4 years. So, yeah, I think stay with the X, because when you get that swing into where you're,
it's going to like
working
knuckleball a little bit.
It's just going to, the X then retains that little bit of height to it, doesn't let it just drop the top off, which then when you go to your longer runs is just going to start to fall out the sky a little bit. So, right, so let me cross-reference all the specs of that. And it is, ultimately, it's just a case of trying to find the best, ultimately, compromise of all the elements. Saying, okay, well, this bit's good, that bit's, fine. As long as it's fine and the other bits are good. As long as none of it's
it's always.
Then. Yeah, certainly. So, summary-wise, what we can see is the good side is that these are still in a great place from a setup point of view. Now, whether it's construction that requires a slightly heavier swing weight, or and a bit more feel for the bottom end, or just naturally being a little bit heavier, we've gone about 0.3 of a point heavier on swing weight, so it's marginal,
but still a little bit.
But just gives you a little bit more to drive against. And I think the moment we put that on, you could just see the ball speed pop and a little bit more consistency of that extra ball speed. The 142s on efficiency rather than 139, 140. Loft, because of the nature on the head, we can creep it. I mean, it's not a lot, half a degree more loft, just to make sure we keep that launch angle there. But then the face tech, I'll take that off the swing rate scale. Face tech on the Mizuno just being taken a little bit further just brings that spin down a fraction, which allows us to go a little higher on loft, which we saw the moment you squared it through. There's that punchier flight. But it's really that the face tech moving on being. What's that? A couple of series, so 4 or 5 years old on those heads, or 5, 6 years old. Because we're now 3 on, so 6 years old, 6 to 7 years old. Just able to get a little bit more ball speed as it progresses through. We don't really want to change or affect the consistency at the bottom end. Hence, these heads,
Rather than 525s.
starting at 7-iron, the progression on the face,
Yeah.
that's where that's a good thing. But then get a little bit more shot value as we go through the set. It's really kind of an augmentation on those. The ping version just popped the flight up a little bit too much.
Yeah.
Hence going to the Mizunos, and the benefit of that is softer feel of the head. So shaft identical, length lie identical, maybe even a half a degree flatter.
Yep.
Half a degree, but really a little more ball speed and a slightly softer feel off those heads. And by the looks of it, yeah, it looks like there's a good half a club.
Yeah.
I think a good half a club in there, maybe even squeezing 5-7 yards. I think.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. So even just the feel off of them, just felt like the ball was coming off quicker.
Yeah.
As much as I love the I200s, it was getting to the stage where, you know, I think even Dad went into his 425s was hitting similar clubs to me, and that's not happening.
Can't be having that, yeah. So yeah, small improvement, but at your level, little increments.
Definitely.
Everyone's level, little increments make a big difference. So yeah,
Wonderful.
yeah,
Perfect.
Right,
Excellent.
great stuff.